Hello, welcome to the new video The Love of Milim and Rimuru by BenGrem1234. Chapter 13. Death of Clayman and his schemes. Clayman was looking at Rimuru with fear written all over his face. He didn't know what to do. Earlier, he was fighting that female org with everything he had and couldn't so much as scratch her. He was confident in his powers as an awakened demon lord and was certain that he could beat most of the demon lords here in a one-on-one fight. Yet, he couldn't hurt the org. Her sword cut and nullified everything he dishes out, and if the sword cuts him, his regeneration also stops responding. She was faster than him, who specialized in a long-range attack. It was no surprise that he was helpless to her. And now, her master, who has somehow become a true dragon, is now standing before him. He kept an eye on his fight against Milim, and he could say that he stands no chance at all against him. He has sealed all means of escape from him. Judging from the look on his face, he doesn't plan to finish him off with just one strike. He probably wants him to suffer humiliation before killing him. There's absolutely nothing he could do against this monster. The other demon lords had a shocked expression with the way fight they're watching was progressing. Seriously, that subordinate of Rimuru is terrifyingly strong. She made Clayman look like a baby, Dino said with a sigh. Indeed she is. Her power may be smaller than Clayman, but her skills are nothing to scoff at. She outclassed Clayman as skills and utility, Draggle said. She is strong, yeah, but I'm more interested in the relationship of Rimuru and Milim. Seems that they're lovers, Leon said. Guy sighed. Just great, more annoying headache for me. Don't say that, Guy. I am quite happy to see my niece finally found someone to take care of her. I knew that Rimuru will be special the moment I met him, Velzard said to Guy. Either way, this fight is over. Clayman is finished, Valentine said. Damn that Milim. To think she would find a lover before I did. If only I had my true form back, then I wouldn't be worried because I'm beautiful. Now though, she is going to brag and make fun of my single life to my face. This is not good at all, Ramirez said to herself. Guy, who was by her side, heard what she said but decided to ignore it. If he get involved, it will only cause more problems for him. Rimuru stood in front of Clayman and was about to attack when Ranga contacted him in his mind. Master, what is it, Ranga? Rimuru answered. I have run into a problem that will require your presence, Ranga said. What is it? Is the fox too strong for you? Rimuru asked, confused. No, my lord, but I don't know how to proceed, Ranga responded. I am coming, Rimuru thought. He then turned to Xian. Xian, make sure that Clayman does not move from that sport until I return. Xian nodded, but before she could move, Clayman raised his hand in the air and released a purple mist from it. Immediately, the fox that was with Ranga rushed to Clayman and stood by his side. Ranga came to Rimuru's side and bowed. Forgive me, master. I did not know what to do. Rimuru looked at him and wondered what he was talking about. Less than answer. It seems that Clayman is using bind magic to bind the baby fox to do as he wished against her will greater than. I see. So Clayman is forcing her to do his wishes, and that is why Ranga didn't want to attack her. Less than correct. After analyzing everyone in this room, the same type of magic has been detected on the individual known as Demon Lord Frey greater than. Rimuru was shocked. That would explain why Frey is helping Clayman. Does that mean he is controlling her will? Less than no, the magic that is used on Demon Lord Frey is known as soul binding magic. This allows Clayman to have the power to kill Demon Lord Frey with a thought if he so chooses, regardless of the distance greater than. Rimuru got angry after hearing that. Seal, can you cancel the spell? Less than. Greater than less than it has been cancelled, my lord. Greater than. Wait. That quickly. Wow, Seal. You work fast, huh? Rimuru thought with a smile. Less than of course, master. I live only to see my beloved master's wish fulfilled. Greater than. I'm counting on you in all our future battles, Seal, Rimuru thought before he looked at Ranga, who still had his head bowed. Rimuru touched Ranga's head, which made him to look up at him. Don't worry about anything. Leave the rest to me. I will save her and free her from Clayman's curse. Go and stay with Xian until I'm done. Yes, master. As you wish. Ranga happily ran to Xian's side and stood. Rimuru then faced Clayman with an unreadable expression. Clayman needed a distraction, which is why he summoned back his fox. If the fox could buy him some time, he could use that time to try and break the barrier surrounding them with his full strength. Before he could order the fox to engage, Rimuru appeared in front of him and kicked him in the face with enough force that sent him crashing to the wall of the barrier. Rimuru now stood next to the fox and looked at it. The fox had a terrified look on its face when its eyes met that of Rimuru. Rimuru placed his hand on its head and immediately, the binding that Clayman was using to bind her movements and actions disappeared. The fox shrunk down to its child form and fell unconscious on the floor. Rimuru picked her up and walked back to Xian and Ranga before giving Xian the fox. "Look after her," was all he said before returning to where Clayman is. "I will, Lord Rimuru," Xian responded, watching Rimuru leave. Rimuru approached Clayman, who was still rolling on the floor in agony from his kick. That was to be expected because he used thought acceleration on Clayman when he kicked him. The kick may have happened in seconds, but Clayman is feeling that kick for many years in his mind. This is all thanks to Rimuru thought acceleration. Rimuru looked at the still agonizing Clayman with a cold look. "I really want to kill you so bad right now, but even I know that all the evil schemes you were planning could not have been planned by you alone. So tell me, Clayman, who are you working with?" Clayman weakly stood up from the floor when Rimuru cancelled the thought acceleration placed on him. He looked at Rimuru with anger. "You lowly slime. How dare you do that to?" He didn't finish because Rimuru cut of his left him with his sword with such speed that only the high demon lords like Guy and Milim could see. Clayman shouted in agony at the lose of his arm. The pain was intensified by thought acceleration, making it worse than hell for him. "Wrong answer. If you answer this question wrong again, you will lose more than just an arm. Who are you working with?" Rimuru coldly asked him. Clayman clutched his bleeding arm with his right hand and glared at Rimuru. "Even if I die today, betraying my comrades is the last thing I will do." Just then, Rimuru received a message from Soy and his men who were fighting Clayman's army. Rimuru looked disgusted from what he saw in his mind. His men reported that the mission was a success, but Soy informed him about a crystal recording they found in Clayman's mansion. The video was about most of the things that Clayman did to Frey and her people. Rimuru looked at Clayman with a newfound rage. "You disgusting freak. So this is what you have been doing to Demon Lord Frey. I can't believe that a freak like you exist. Not only are you working with those clowns, you also do all that unspeakable things to Demon Lord Frey." Clayman looked shocked. "How did you know that?" "My men told me just now after defeating all your men." "Did you really think you could get away with all that you have done? And for your information, I have broken the spell that you used on Frey. She is no longer your puppet, and I have severed your link with the spell that you placed in her city. Clayman, you are finished," Rimuru said to him while standing straight and placing his sword in his shoulder, displaying his aura for all to see. Frey began to cry after hearing what Rimuru said. After so many years of pain and agony, she is finally free. This man has appeared and broke the shackles that bind her and her people. Words could not express how happy she was at that moment. The other demon lords looked at her in understanding. They weren't idiots, except for maybe Ramirez. They understood what Clayman has been doing to Frey from hearing what Rimuru said. Luminous Valentine in particular, looked extremely pissed off from hearing what Rimuru said. "If Rimuru were not killing him, I would have done it myself. That detestable pig," Luminous thought in anger. Milim, who was standing outside Rimuru's barrier, had a smile on her face. "I believed in him. I knew that if anyone could help Frey, then my beloved Rimuru will be the one. Show them, Rimuru. Show them all that you stand at the same plane as the strongest in this world. You are my beloved, and I will never let anyone get between us." Clayman looked at Rimuru in fear. He couldn't believe what he was told. The summary of everything is that he has lost. He had nothing left to fight with anymore. This is the end for him. Clayman stood up and weakly removed his shirt with his right arm. In his body, some type of rune was drawn all over his body. The rune began to glow a very bright light. Rimuru had a shocked look after seeing the rune on Clayman's body glowing. He had no idea what it does, but he knew that it will be trouble. Less than warning. The individual known as Clayman is planning a nuclear self-destruct spell greater than. What? That is bad. Will it kill me? Rimuru thought. Less than negative. The nuclear explosion will not kill Master. However, several individuals in this Walpurgis will be killed by it. This spell was designed to hurt the physical and spiritual bodies of anyone who it hits greater than. How do we stop it, Seal? Rimuru asked. The demon lords were surprised by the level of mana that Clayman was generating all of a sudden. This is bad, guys. This just got out of hand, Dino shouted in panic. What is going on? What is Clayman trying to do? Leon shouted while standing up. It looked like Clayman is planning to self-destruct with a nuclear spell. Things will end terribly if that thing explodes, Guy said with worry in his tone. Not for himself but for the other demon lords. Every demon lord there knew that the situation was serious if Guy was worried. They all stood up from their seat and faced Guy. What do we do, Guy? Valentine asked. Everybody here will have to combine their powers to create a multiple barrier that will weaken the impact of the explosion. The problem of this spell is that it attacks both spiritual and physical body. It could easily bypass any barrier due to its nature being a spiritual attack, but with multiple barrier created by all the demon lords, we might just slow it down enough for it to weaken, Guy explained to everyone. They all nodded after hearing what Guy said. If that is the case, I won't be needing this mask anymore, the man wearing a lion mask said while removing his mask to reveal that he was indeed Carrion. Every demon lord were surprised, but they knew that now was not the time for questions. They instead focused on creating the barrier. What about Lady Milim, Xian and Ranga? They are still outside the barrier, Trainee asked in panic. I don't know about the other two, but something like this will not be able to kill Milim, Guy answered. Besides, Rimuru is still there. He would never allow his comrades to face any form of danger, Ramirez told Trainee. Trainee nodded and focused her mana along with everyone else in creating the barrier. Clayman had his head facing the ceiling. He was deep in thought before he looked at Rimuru with anger. I may not have the power to beat you, but not even you can escape this nuclear explosion without injury. Even if you survive, your friends will certainly perish. I only wish that I can see the look of anguish on your face when you realize how helpless you truly are. It seems that you were right, Laplace. I really got carried away with my new powers. None of this would have happened if I had planned things out well, Clayman thought to himself. Forgive me, Lord Kazarem, Clayman shouted in a loud voice before the light from the rune expanded and consumed him. Don't get ahead of yourself, Clayman. I am still standing, you know, Rimuru said to him in anger. Less than activate the ultimate skill, Beelzebub. Yes, no, greater than. Yes, and that was all it took for Beelzebub to consume everything. Clayman's nuclear skill was impressive, but nothing can escape the quenching hunger of Beelzebub. It consumed Clayman along with the nuclear strike and isolated it into Rimuru imaginary space, where Seal began to convert it into power. After Rimuru consumed the explosion, everywhere became quiet. Rimuru turned to everyone who was watching him with a shocked look in their face. He could understand why they were looking at him like that. After all, he just ate an attack that had enough power to blow up a continent like it was nothing. Before he could move, Milim tackled him in a hug which pushed them both to the ground. Both of them were lying on the ground, still hugging each other. I was worried about you for a moment, you know, Milim whispered to him. Rimuru smiled. Sorry for worrying you, Milim. I promise to make it up to you. Yeah. I plan to make you pay for worrying me like this, but for now, I'm happy that it is finally over, Milim said to him. Rimuru released her from the hug and helped her stand up. He gazed at her eyes and smiled. After we go home, let's go on a date together, just the two of us. Milim blushed hard after hearing what Rimuru said. A huge smile made its way to her lips. I would like that a lot. Rimuru smiled back and closed the distance between them in a kiss which Milim returned. They both kept on kissing, not minding that the other demon lords all had an awkward look in their faces while watching the two of them kiss each other. Chapter 14. The Octogram. This is the final chapter of the Walpurgis arc. Next, we will begin to see the reaction of the Holy Knights and the world in general regarding Rimuru and Milim's relationship. I am very excited to write it, and I hope you all are to read it when it's done. Honestly, I didn't expect that this story will be this popular. I thank everyone who supported and liked this story. I have a little bit of bad news that will be said at the last author section after the story. So scroll down to the last section to read it. The demon lords watching Rimuru and Milim all had an awkward look. How long do they intend to kiss? Ramirez asked. It's been 5 minutes already. Shouldn't we stop them by now? Dino said. Well, they have been hiding their feelings from each other. Now they can freely show and express it, Frey said. They could do that once the meeting is over. For now, we need them to stop and return to their sits, Guy said as he stood up and approached them. Hey Rimuru and Milim. Rimuru and Milim, who were still kissing each other, stopped after they realized that someone is calling them. They separated from each other and looked at where everyone was, only to see that everyone there were looking at them. They blushed from the embarrassment of the situation. You two can do whatever you want with each other later after we finish this meeting, Guy said to them before walking back to his seat. Rimuru shyly nodded to Guy before he turned to Milim, who was by his side. Let's go Milim. We still have to conclude this Walpurgis. But I want to be with you some more, she pouted. Rimuru nearly had a heart attack from seeing the pout in Milim's face. He immediately looked away from her to calm his heart. This is dangerous. I have to be careful around her. That look of hers is too cute to be described. Deep breath Rimuru, deep breath. Milim looked at Rimuru with confusion written all over her face. Is something wrong Rimuru? Rimuru, hearing his name, turned back to her and gave her an awkward smile. Nothing is wrong. Let's hurry up and get this meeting started. Milim nodded and they both returned to where the others were. Once they arrived, they took their seat next to each other after Rimuru brought out the table from his stomach. Guy stood up and began. Now that the real mastermind is dead, I have two things to ask. He turned to Carrion. First, how are you still alive, Carrion? I wasn't actually killed. Milim and Frey wanted to trick Clayman and gain his trust. They need Clayman to let his guard down and reveal where he kept the spell he used to bind Frey and her people. So they made him believe that Milim had killed me in that fight while I stayed in hiding, Carrion explained. Milim suddenly stood up from her seat with a look of realization. She turned to Frey. Frey, did you bring it for me? Frey smiled at her antics and brought out 2 pairs of pink dragon knuckles. Of course I brought them. Honestly Milim, when I saw you pose before engaging Rimuru, I thought that you have forgotten everything we talked about. Milim took the dragon knuckles and hugged them to her face in order to hide her blush. I couldn't help it. Hearing Rimuru say all that because of me, made me really happy. Frey sighed. At least everything worked out. Before I forget. Frey stood up and walked to Rimuru and bowed to him. Thank you for saving my life and that of my people. It means a lot to me. Rimuru became embarrassed and started waving his hands to stop her from bowing. No need to bow to me. Please raise your head already. Frey raised her head and smiled to him before she went back to her seat. Milim returned to her seat and placed her head on Rimuru's shoulder. Rimuru blushed but didn't push her away. Instead, he placed his hand on her waist and brought her closer to him. Milim, seeing where Rimuru's hand was, began to blush as well, but she didn't move.